now. That's you.
Hi, it's Darcy Rees here from UW Women's Basketball. I'm a forward center, and I'm just welcoming you to Circling Seattle Sports.
You heard it from her first. This is the 96th episode of this podcast, the 30th installment of the Seattle interview series. So we've hit 30. That's pretty cool. And it's a pretty nice honor to speak with Darcy here. I'm just going to go down this, list of sort of accomplishments. Obviously, there's more, but it's kind of cool to look at. Member of the Australia U17 national team from 2015 to 2018, South Australian Branch Order of Australia Association Student Citizenship Award in 2017, Australia Day honors receiving Holdfast Bay Youth Citizen of the Year for Sport and Community Achievement in 2018. That's pretty damn cool. And obviously, playing here in UW for the women's basketball team. How have things been for you lately? I know it's kind of been hot lately, but obviously, we're sort of in off season here, had a kind of weird last few years here with how everything's gone. How have you been? Is there anything sort of kicking up as we get, closer to season, or how have you been taking things?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me firstly. And it's been an up and down 3 years for me so far, but I'm really excited for where we are now. I think we're in a really good place with the program, and we're like in workouts now. We've just nearly finished summer workouts, and I'm really excited for preseason to hit. I think coming off COVID, coming off obviously a coaching change, it's going to be really good for this program, and hopefully we'll just be able to come out and make an impact with a bunch of new girls, a bunch of new plays and new positions, and I'm really, really excited. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, obviously, had some people transfer out, and I know that must suck because, these are girls probably that, you're friends with, and they're key parts of the team, but also there are some returning people like you, obviously, bringing in Tina Langley, bringing in two new transfers in, but I will address that when we talk about UW. I want to go back to sort of the beginning here. Are you able to sort of pick out a time or a time frame where your basketball journey started? Because I will mention your parents here in a second, but is there any sort of key point you can say, this is really where I picked up a basketball and things took off?
I think my first memory of really picking up a basketball, obviously we were surrounded by it growing up, me and my younger siblings. But the first time I really played, I think I was about 10 years old. We'd just moved states, and that was the thing to do in a little town in Penguin, Tasmania. And that's kind of how we became part of the community. Like my parents both played for the team, and me and my younger siblings played little Aussie hoops, and it was just for fun. We won a lot of tournaments, but we just kind of played because we enjoyed doing it. And at that point, I think I couldn't even tie my own shoes tight enough to play basketball in, but we just played in the backyard and played for this little team in this little town. And that's, I think, where my basketball journey started. I'd probably credit Penguin to that because it was just such a community thing. And it was just what you did. Like every day you just go up there and practice in the gym, and going back there now, it's compared to all the things. Yeah, it's definitely the place that my journey started for basketball.
So obviously, you kind of dig into it in that answer there, but how much influence or I guess push would you say that your parents had on your playing career? Were they like, okay, this is what we were doing, we want you to see you guys do it, or is it like, hey, if you want to play basketball, we will help you with that. If not, that's perfectly fine. Was that push sort of there, or was it sort of discovered on your own?
No, because they both played at such a high level and both achieved so many great things through the sport. They also didn't start until they were more in their teen years. So they were very much like, no, you need to try every sport under the sun, and you need to try basketball for yourself. So I played everything. Honestly, I wanted to be a gymnast growing up. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a gymnast. I was a little tall for that. But we did every other sport you can imagine, and then found basketball and chose it for ourselves. They would, yeah, no pressure whatsoever. There was always, you have to play this because you want to play it, not because we want you to play it. And if you want to go do something else with your life, you're more than happy to do that. And thankfully, we just chose to follow in their footsteps without any of the pressure, which I love. I'm so grateful that they weren't the people that were pushing me, because I feel like it takes so much love out of the game. You've got to enjoy doing it, especially to get to the level that I'm at right now. And if I want to continue it further, you can't do that just because someone else wants you to do it. You have to actually love the game, because ultimately, like, you spend so many hours doing something that at the end of the day, like, this is your life and you might as well enjoy it while you're doing it. So yeah.
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, if you're raised with a basketball in your hands and it's like you said, if it's not your dream, then what are you playing for? You know?
Right.
And when you're surrounded by it, like you said, when you're at the level you're at right now, in a pretty good conference, and you want to
Mhm.
continue it like we were talking about, even further, it's got to be something that you love. And so would you say, since it's, a love of yours, that you don't have a trouble necessarily, keeping that love going, or are there times where you need to really take yourself away from the basketball court and just do things to differentiate, kind of take your mind off of it, sort of distance yourself from it?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think even if you love something, if you do it every day, there's gonna be days that you don't want to do it. Like, there's gonna be moments where you're losing, or you're not having a good practice, or you're injured, and you have to remind yourself that, like, I am not just a basketball player. Like, I have other things in my life. So yeah, I've definitely, especially I've had a few injuries over my career, especially since I've been at UW. So I think it's those times that I've really had to take a step back and kind of be like, this is so much a big part of my life, and it's got me to where I am today, but it's not the only thing that I am. And I have other things that I can do, because otherwise you couldn't do it. Like, not, you don't love something all day, every day. Like, every hobby that anyone's ever had, there's days you don't want to do it, but you just do it because you will love it eventually.
To work on something, that definitely makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly.
And it is good to hear that it wasn't like, all right, start running layup lines as soon as you could.
Yeah, as soon as you could walk. No, I had the
And
ball in my hand since I was little. There's a picture of me from our local paper the day I was born with a basketball next to my head, because my dad was playing in a, like, championship game at the time, and I was going to follow in his footsteps. But they were the greatest, and that they never forced anything upon us to do. And
and that is really cool to hear, because like you were saying with your dad, four-time NBL champion for both Adelaide, the 36ers, and the North Melbourne Giants, as well as part of the Aussie national team, which is pretty cool, representing the country on that stage, as you've done. And then your mother, Nicole, was a member of the WNBL from 1990 to 1997, if my information is correct. So yeah, it is cool to hear that it was like, hey, like you're saying, every sport under the sun, see what you want
right,
to do, and
try
um,
everything.
so would you say, being a gymnast was maybe something that would have been the close second, or was there another sport that might have taken that cake
Um,
behind basketball?
as much as I wanted to be a gymnast, it just was never on the cards for me. I don't think. I was always too tall. I
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
like, I couldn't have done it. Hats off to them. They're amazing. I love watching the gymnastics, but it was from probably the age of 8, it was not on the cards for me. But if I wasn't playing basketball, I probably would have been playing netball at home. I really liked netball growing up. It's very similar to basketball in a lot of ways, but also very different. Um, but I don't know, actually. Basketball is just always kind of, I've never pictured my life without it. Um, yeah, from when I picked the ball up, like when I was 9, when I can remember. But yeah, from then it's always been the dream. I don't think there is any alternative. There's no plan B. This is plan A.
So, you kind of mentioned your siblings there. Can you talk about your sister Kelsey, who, plays for Utah now, playing in the same conference, as well as what it's like having her in the same conference? Obviously, you had the battle of the Rees sisters there last year, which, I think you'd have won that game. So I guess you could hold that
Yeah, it
over
was
her.
1-1, to be fair. But yeah, I'm super proud of her. It's really, she's at the U19 World Championships right now. So yeah, really proud of her. Really pleased that we can be in the same conference. I think the Pac-12 for women's basketball is like the greatest country conference in the country. And for her to be so close, but having her own experience is just so great for us. I think, like, getting to play her twice a year minimum, it's so much fun for our family. It's so much fun. everyone back home to watch that we both made it. You know, we both had our own journeys to get to this point, but like we made it to the Pac-12 and we get to play Pac-12 basketball against each other. Like we've never, unlike American sports growing up, like we never played together because we were 2 years apart. Like we never did any of that. So to get to play against her now, it's really special. It's a game that we have to win. Like there's a lot riding on that game, no matter what. But it was really great. I loved getting to see it as well because we're so far away from home, and especially this year, like I haven't been home in over nearly a year now, and I probably won't go home in a year. So I haven't seen any of my family, but to get to see her twice a year guaranteed is really great. It's so we love it.
So is obviously, I'm sure there's extra motivation going into those games. Do you use any old tricks against her if you guys, sort of in a one-on-one situation, or is it just motivation throughout the whole games those 2 times a year to just be on top of everything, I guess?
I don't know if there's extra motivation. I think I like want to win. I'm a very competitive person, as most athletes are, and I want to win every single game. But I think it's more my pride that's hurt in those games. But we weren't very good at playing one-on-one growing up because we were too competitive, and there's no refs to call any
Oh yeah.
unsportsmanlike fouls. So my parents would make us play with mouth guards in the backyard, but
Oh.
um, I think there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of family controversy in those games. So it's important for that, but as opposed to motivation, I think I go in the same way. I try not to be focused on it. It's just another game for our team to win, and the more games we win, the better we do. So ultimately, but yeah, just a little bit more of a chip on my shoulder for those ones.
What would you describe your recruitment process being like? You were a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. Was there any place, outside of UW that you really had thought about going towards, you might have been leaning to, anywhere that you had initially thought of before, thinking about University of Washington, or was it sort of, did everything sort of lead to UW at one point? Because I remember reading in an article, once you stepped on campus, it just became apparent, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really set on the idea of coming to college. At the time, it wasn't something that a lot of international students in women's basketball did. I think now it's a lot more prevalent. There's nearly an Australian on nearly every Pac-12 women's basketball team at the moment. But the year I came was kind of the first year. So it was more Kelsey's dream, to be honest. Like she wanted to come over and play in America. I was kind of set on going a medical path back home. Like I'd done really well in all my year 12 exams. I like got into all the school like academics that I wanted to get into. And I was a development player for our WNBL side. So I was kind of set on staying at home. But I thought, well, if Kelsey's going to do it, then I should, I don't know, take a visit somewhere. And I decided I was going to try it out for a year. And if I really hated it, I would come home and it would have just been an experience. And I didn't seek to be recruited. Like I didn't put film out anywhere. I like talked to whoever rang me and reached out to me. And there was a few options coming in, and then I decided I'd visit UW, and I just came here, and the girls were just great. The campus was great. It was the ideal location. If I'm going to come all the way across the world, I wanted to be in a city, but somewhere that I could like not live in the city, but have access to a city, and also be somewhere like it's not a direct flight, but it's kind of 2 flights. It's not over Florida where I have to fly like multiple hours. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. It was really fun. Really enjoyed the girls, really enjoyed the company. It just seemed like a place that I could call home and feel like I was remotely home. So yeah, I would have I would have signed on my visit, but my mom wasn't able to come, so I wanted to sign when she was there. So I signed when I got home. But yeah, it was a weird feeling. I feel like people say it all the time, like I just knew, but I really did. I just came here and I like did the visit and I was like, wow, I could be really happy here. And now it's 3.5 years later, and yeah, I'm glad I did. It was a great decision.
it is interesting to hear how that goes, coming into it. I don't really think I want to do that. And then,
Mhm.
sibling kind of talks about it, makes
Yeah.
that apparent, take that visit, and in doing research to lead up to this, something that, seemed really to set the university apart was you mentioned the family aspect of the
Mhm.
team, really feeling
Definitely.
like it's a family environment. Is that something now that, with different girls coming in, obviously the two transfers that we'll talk about in a little bit, coming in, they're coming to a whole different situation. Even, the girls that are freshmen. Um, is that something that, you strive to be a part of, is help building that family culture and help making it be a comfortable place for these girls to come in? Because obviously, you're working to be a better team, but also
Mhm.
sports are such a beautiful thing where they can teach you so much and you can make such great bonds with these women, and men, wherever you play these sports. Is that something that, would you say is that what set the university apart, is just the family environment and how those girls and the university set that up?
Definitely. I think that for me was like I could just see it. Sometimes, like obviously all schools want to have that culture, but I feel like sometimes you can see that that's not the case. And I just feel like here it was like really the case. Like all the girls generally wanted to spend time with each other, like wanted to be around each other. And I would love to be a part of that, creating that family for all the new faces that we have this year. And I think we're doing a really, really good job of doing that so far, because ultimately, like that's like we are one big family. Like we spend so much time together, we practice so many hours, we live together, we live, work, sleep, everything is like in the same apartments, in the same places as these other people. So like you want to love them. They're your sisters. And like we say it all the time, but yeah, they truly have to be, especially like with COVID, how like if we wanted to play, we couldn't see like anyone else. And COVID was hard for like everyone, athletes, non-athletes, everyone. But yeah, to be that isolated, you have to be a family. So yeah, no, I think that's what set it apart. And I'm glad it did, because I couldn't be this far away from my family without having a support system here. Because yeah, as I said before, I haven't been home in so long, but I have a good support system here. So it makes it worth it. If it wasn't here, I don't know how that I would do it.
And I'm like you're saying, I'm sure that's huge, like you're saying, not being able to go back home and maybe not being able to
Mhm.
go back home for a little bit. And to have that family environment. Obviously it's not exactly the same, but I'm sure
No,
it sounds like it
but
does a good job of, helping you stay above ground, because that is something. It's like, hey, I would really like to go see everybody right now, but that might not
definitely.
happen. So having you guys is, it's what I've got, and it's a good thing. So that is good to hear, because you
Yeah.
want that sort of thing. Like you said, that's not always the case at every university.
No.
Um, but
I got lucky. Like I have girls that I've gone to Christmas at different people's houses. Like I've like stayed there. Like they treat me as their own, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because yeah, I have a whole second family over here, and I don't know what I would.
so, with that being said, talking about both, that family aspect, as well as, you mentioned, um, when you were talking about coming over here, if it wasn't sort of the thing I wanted to do, I would just say, and hey, this is it. This was an experience. What was the first year here like for you, both on and off the court? Because obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have to get used to. Like we talked about before we started recording with the first days article that I saw. Just different things, different pronunciations. The accent
Mhm.
coming into play. What was the first year, at UW, like both on and off the court for you?
Definitely. It was a roller coaster, I think is the best way to describe it. There was some really great moments. I think like I ended up starting, I played great in some really good games. And as a freshman playing in the Pac-12, like that's something that you just dream of. Like no one does that. They say come to college and you ride the bench for a few years, especially in such a good conference. So that was a really good high for me. I really enjoyed that. Obviously, I got to get to know all the girls and spend a lot of time with them, and we went to some really cool places and did some really cool things. Like I think we went to Florida. We went jet skiing. I'd never done that before. It was awesome. Like I spent my first American Christmas, but there was also like there was a lot of adjustment. It wasn't easy. It was really, really, really hard. I think like being a student athlete is hard, and I think being an international student athlete is immensely hard. Like there's a lot that goes into being an international student by itself is hard. Being a student athlete by itself is hard. So I think to be a combination of both is just a lot of adversity that we forget that happens. So yeah, there was a lot. I mean, spending Christmas away from home, not like I think the hardest part for me was after every game, all the families are there and my family wasn't there, and I don't have any friends that are coming to the games because I don't know anyone here. So it took a lot of adjustment, getting used to. There's a lot of culture shocks that I was like, we both speak English, she'll be fine, but there's a lot of words that are different. There's a lot of
Yep.
phrases that are different. The food's different. There's subtleties that you just forget. It took me a while to walk on the right side of the street or going up the stairs
Oh,
around campus. I would be like going to class and running into people confused why I was walking on the left side, not the right side. So I'd have to, there was so many little things that you do unconsciously in your day that I would have to think about, which just made my day like a little bit more harder than it should have been. But as I've adjusted to that, it's got a whole lot easier and I just live my normal life here now. But yeah, I think being a freshman is hard no matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing. So yeah, to be a freshman in a foreign country by myself, trying to be a student athlete was quite challenging, but it was a lot of fun and I'm glad I did it and it taught me a lot about a lot of things. So yeah.
all in all, it sounds like a really big trial by fire learning experience to sort of just get your
Definitely.
self out there. And like you were saying, with the different little subtleties, little things that
Mhm.
have to,
Yeah.
be like, oh, this is not how I'm used to it.
Right. I didn't know how to
Um,
tip. I didn't know about taxes. Like we don't tip and also our taxes included. So if something is $10, it's $10. Here I'd like have a $10 note ready and they'd be like, that's $11.60. And I was like, why? What do you mean? But yeah, it's it teach I think it teaches I think everyone should try and do it. Go travel the world. There's a lot of things that you don't realize that you'll appreciate about your home country and that you'll think could be different when you see the other side of the world for a period.
what was your time like under Coach Jody Wynn? Because obviously, that wasn't her tenure wasn't throughout your entire career, but what was your time like under her, and how things changed when she was coach?
Yeah, it was I think it was a good learning experience. I think we played a lot different style to what I've ever played before and what I ever may play again. But it did allow me to try a lot of different things. I learned and teach myself a lot of different things. Like I went from my freshman year, I think I shot like hardly any threes on the year until the Pac-12 tournament to then coming in my sophomore year and shooting a bunch of threes. And then this year, like 50% of my shots were threes. Um, and it taught me to play a lot of different roles. So Jodie was really good to me. She was a really good person. She treated me really well. So, but I think I'm really excited for the new direction of the program because Coach Langley and the rest of her coaching staff, I think, are going to take us really good places. And I love her style of play. She's very, very direct and very efficient. And she's just really, really smart. And I don't think I've ever met anyone quite as smart as Coach. She's just very, very good at what she does. And I learn something new every day. And she's only been here for 6 months. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. And I'm really glad I have 2 years of eligibility left because I think this program is going to go some really good places. And, I'm really happy to be part of it.
Well, that's certainly, exciting to hear because, if usually if a coach comes in, it's got a good system. It's
Mhm.
to an extent, it's up to the players to work in that system and,
Definitely.
like that. And it really sounds like, it's something that you're excited for. So that is something to get excited for when the season comes up here. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely. I think it was a good move for the program, and I think all the girls have really bought into the new environment that they've created, and just I can't fault anything that she's done so far, and all the people that have been hired around her are just great people that you would want to spend your day with. So yeah, we have a lot of fun.
before I sort of get back to, Coach Langley and, uh, like you were saying with the other hires, you talked about subtleties, and I do want to mention that again. Was there anything different that might have been subtle, or something that, you weren't used to when it comes to playing, hooping in the States as opposed to in Australia? Is there anything that might have been different that, you do over back in Australia that's different here, or something that's, you're not used to over in the States? You know what I mean? Just this anything that
Definitely,
was
yeah.
sort of
There
different.
is some different rules, and I think NCAA basketball has started to go to more towards FIBA rules. Um, but when I first came over, the key size is different. I don't know if you knew that, but our key at
Oh.
home is a lot wider. So there's a lot more space to work with. And also our 3-point line has always been FIBA regulation. There's no like women's men's lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I came over here and the 3-point line was especially my freshman year was a lot closer than it was back home. Also we have a different shot clock system. We have 8 seconds to get the ball over the half court line, and we only have 24 seconds of shot clock. So the game is a lot faster than it is here. The 30-second shot clock kind of threw me a little bit. This seems like a lot of time. And you only get at home, you get 14 seconds once you rebound the ball,
Yep.
24 seconds total. So the extra 6 seconds on the shot clock just makes the game a lot slower. You can slow the game down a lot more, and you have a lot more time with the ball in your possession. So that was a little bit of an adjustment for me. There's also like subtleties, like we don't get to line up. There's not 6 people on the free throw line. There's only 3 on one side, 2 on the other. So that was new. I wasn't really sure about that. And there's a few different variations, like in the travel rules, we do a lot more Euro stepping at home. And I think now thinking about it, the biggest one for me was we can't call a timeout when the ball's in play. The ball has to be out of the court for a timeout to be called. Whereas here, if you're just stuck, you can call a timeout.
Yeah. Huh.
Or the coach can call a timeout. But yeah, now at home, you have to throw the ball out of bounds for a timeout to be called. So to me, it was really confusing when people were just calling timeouts when they're stuck in a corner.
You can't do that.
I was like, what are you doing? But yeah, I mean, it's the same game ultimately, but there's a few little rules that I'm like, wow, we weren't allowed to do that. That's not a thing, but they are adjusting more to play FIBA rules, I think, as basketball and international basketball.
Yeah, I looked up the key as you were talking. I was like, oh, you weren't kidding. So
No, it's
that
a
is
lot bigger.
different things to think about that I guess I wouldn't have thought about. But yeah, I don't know, because I know there is, like there's the women's 3-point line and the men.
Mhm.
It would just be simpler if it was just
Yeah, I think they're
regulated.
joining it this year. I think there was a change that was announced. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it would be simpler if it was all the same, which it is at home. It's all one 3-point line. It's just the 3-point line.
Yeah, so I don't know
And
why
here
that
there's
was
like
different.
women's, men's, NBA, which I found very confusing.
Why are there
But,
3 lines here?
right, which one am I shooting from? But we've worked it out as the years have gone by.
Definitely, like you were saying, little learning moments. Like, oh, that's why she's calling a timeout. That definitely makes sense. But it's like, yeah,
Right.
I guess it's good that, like you were mentioning, they're finally going over, to FIBA rules and just making that sort of something that's simpler and not just like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm playing NCAA ball right now. It's a little bit
Right.
different than everything else.
Yeah, like I went home I shot a lot of threes here, I think I mentioned in the last 2 seasons. And last year when I went home before last season, I went home and I was shooting at home and I was like, why am I short on all of my shots? But it was because the 3-point line is like a good step out at home than it is here. So yeah, it's the subtle things.
Can you talk about the 2 games where you played your sister and what those were like, this last year? Because I know we touched on that a little bit, and it
Mhm.
being a very prideful thing, I'm sure for
Yeah.
both of you, but can you talk about what that was like, to see her, one, to see her in general, right? And
Mhm.
then as well, being able to play there as UW took on Utah. I mean, because that's conference play, and conference play is always huge,
Yeah.
So can you sort of talk about those game days and what they're like, whether it's, if you got to see her before or after the game, or
Mhm.
well, especially with COVID protocols, I'm sure it was like,
Yeah,
nope,
it
you
was
can't see anybody. You got to get back to the
right.
facility. So can you kind of talk about, what those experiences were like, with your sister?
Yeah, it was really cool. I think there's not one word that would describe it, but I didn't get to see her a lot, obviously COVID. But I got to see her, I think, like one day for an hour or so with masks, socially distanced. But it was great. I mean, I saw her before the game. I think she ran over and gave me a hug, and when we were starting warm-ups. Um, but it was hard because I'm really proud of her. I always want to watch her succeed. Like watching her play, I'm always so like, oh, do this. Oh, please do this. Make that shot. And I wanted her to do so well, but also like I really wanted to win. So I didn't want her to do well, but inside, like I kind of did. And especially because we were playing on each other, I didn't want her to do anything to me. Like I didn't want her to score on me. She was
Yeah.
not scoring on me. I'm older. I should be better. Um, but it was just really fun. I think I got lost in the game, so I didn't think about it too much when I was like actually on the court. But afterwards, like reflecting and like watching the film, it's so exciting. Like to think we grew up on the other side of the world. Like we lived our lives on the other side of the world, and somehow we managed to both not only be good enough at basketball that we played Division 1 in college, but we managed to play in the same conference in a Pac-12 school and be able to play each other. Like it's just astounding when I really like sit down and think about it. That we really did that. Like I can think back to when we were playing like out the back on our concrete court that like wasn't even and the backboard falling off and like we're out there for hours. And you can only shoot on the left side because the clothesline's on the right and all those things you do as kids. And like somehow from there we made it here. And just to watch the film of those games, like obviously I want to win and I want us to be doing well. And we did win the second game, so it was good. But yeah, it's amazing. I don't think there's any other word that describes that. I'm so excited to play her again, but it's just amazing. And just amazing experience. Like who would have thought? Like 3 years ago, who would have thought? 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Yeah, I wouldn't have believed you if you'd told.
Well, hopefully this year, you're able to sort of maybe take the day, whether it's,
Yeah.
whenever you guys travel, just sort of, be able to hang out. Cause like you said, I mean, that's family. And I mean, geographically, that's the closest family right now. So that'll be good. And I'm sure it will with, hopefully how things are going, unless obviously, but that's really cool to see. You mentioned, the other side of the world. Um, can you talk a little bit about the other athletes that we've got here at UW, from Australia and Oceania? Obviously, Gabby Plain is a big headliner there with
Amazing. She's a
her
great.
last year, but also Grace Beasley and Olivia Pollard are two other players, from Australia and Oceania. So can you sort of talk about, is that something that maybe you talk to if you talk to those ladies about that, be like, hey, I mean, it's a journey, like you were saying, to come from the other side of the world. And now we're, in Washington State, in Seattle here, we're in purple and gold. Is that something that any of you guys have talked about, or is it just sort of is it a prideful thing at all to say,
Oh
hey,
yeah, it's
she,
very it's very there's actually a bunch of girls on the track team in cross country that are from Australia. And every time we see them, there's just a connection. Obviously, there's a connection within the student athlete community in general, but I feel like there's that added connection of like, you're from the country I'm from, and we both made it here. But Olivia Pollard hasn't quite got over yet because she's still playing for Australia right now. But when she comes, I'm sure we will. But yeah, me and Grace have talked about it before, especially at like holiday times when everyone else has gone for Christmas or things like that. We're just like, wow, we really did this. Like we're so proud to be Australian. Like there's so much country pride in every time we see any of the athletes that are from Australia. It's just, I mean, there's a flag. I have flags everywhere. We all have our own little flag, but I think we're really proud just of where we've come from and just we love talking about it. I think we take for granted how much like you just enjoy talking about your home and the people that you're surrounded with. So every time we see the girls that are on the track team from Australia, that's all we talk about is home, because you miss they get it. They like know the cultural differences, or like they've
Yeah.
had similar experiences too. So just to be able to have that connection with someone, to be like, oh yeah, I thought that was hilarious too. Or like, did you see the Americans did this? And like, yeah, it's really cool to have so many Australians here at UW in this like circle. Yeah, we're really lucky. And even within the Pac-12, actually, in general, I think that's my favorite part of playing other Pac-12 teams, is there has been a lot of Australians on the other teams, and to be able to see them. And these are kids that I've played with growing up, I played against throughout junior careers, and just to remember us, like I have pictures of me playing at Ula, who's on Washington State. We played under 14 nationals for a grand final against each other, and we were like 12. But to now be playing each other in college on the other side of the world, it's big, and like it's really exciting, and I think it's a great, yeah, we have a lot of pride in our country, and we really love it so much, and we talk about it all the time.
And that's, that is really cool to see, especially obviously you and the women on the basketball team. You mentioned track and field, and then obviously Gabby.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of you guys are a driving force for us. So that's obviously really cool. And it is cool to hear that connection's there, and talking about, maybe discussing the subtleties that are different here, and be like, oh,
Definitely.
so that is cool to hear. And it was something I was curious about, to see if that was something that, was a connection.
Definitely, yeah,
Especially like you
for
said,
both
family away from
everything.
home.
Yeah.
So you did mention Tina Langley, and having her here.
Mhm.
What have the interactions been like so far? Obviously, new head coach, she's coming into a different situation, coming from Rice. Um, what have you overall gotten from her, like sort of first impression type of thing? And what sort of message has, I guess, if she had one, has she conveyed to the team, as sort of a driving mindset as we get ready for the season here? Um, I just, if that makes sense, just
Yeah.
how she's come off to you, as a coach, and maybe as a person,
Mhm.
as someone who's going to be playing under her.
Definitely. I think growth is a big word in our like culture right now. I think we're just trying to create a culture of growth and just being better each day than we were the day before. Because I think so often we set these in all sports and everything. Everyone wants to win a championship. Everyone wants to win the next game or the game after, but you can't just win overnight. You have to win each day. So I think she's really good. She's really smart. She knows exactly what she wants, and she's very, very positive at conveying everything that she does. And I just loved being able to watch her coach and listen to her practice. Obviously, with every coaching change, there's an adjustment period, and it takes a while to get to know new people and new staff and everything like that. But they've made it really easy. They're just a bunch of really great people. And I think that's really important. You have to like the people to listen to them and to respect them. And I think we have a lot of respect for Coach Langley. And I think that carries over onto the court. She's like created a safe, positive environment where it's okay to ask questions, and she makes us better each and every day. And even if it's by like 1% better, and that's still 1% better than you were yesterday. So yeah, as I said before, I think I'm really, really excited for the future of this program. Done a really good job so far, and I'm excited to see when we get hit pretty soon.
Got to put it all into action. So you mentioned, her and the coaching staff. Have you been able to sort of, meet and interact with Nancy Mulkey and Lauren Schwartz? I mean, have they been able to get with the team? And if so, what have they been like? And, what do you think they'll be able to bring? Because obviously we go back all the way to talking about creating that family environment. And that's the same,
Yeah.
with these girls who are transferring in. It's a different part of the country. It's a different,
Right.
college. It's a different team. So, I mean, obviously, if they're already here,
Yes.
what has that been like with them, and sort of, because I believe Nancy already played under Tina Langley. I don't think Lauren
They both did.
both
Yeah.
did. Okay.
Yes.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Lauren played under her as well. So yeah, it's been great. I think they're great people. brought in even more great people to the program. And I think that's like the first step. Like you got to love your family. So it's easy to love great people. And it's been really good to get to know them so far. We've done a few team events. I think we'll do more as we get further into season and everyone moves into their apartments and adjusts to life in Seattle. I think it'll definitely be an adjustment for them. It's not Texas. Seattle is very different to Texas, but I think they're really enjoying it so far, and I think they like fit really easily into the culture we had. I feel like I've known them for ages, and it's just been a really easy adjustment. Yeah, I don't even know if there's anything else I can say to that, but yeah, it's been easy. It's been great. I think they fit in perfectly. I think Lauren's a great 3-point shooter. Nancy brings height that we didn't have. Like, we don't have very many posts, and she's going to be a great one. She was in the draft last year, but she pulled out. So, like, obviously that says a lot about how well she did at Rice, and hopefully we know she can bring that here. So yeah, it's always adding to the team, which is great.
Something that's going to stick with me is, you said, just easy fits, and, just sort of being able to adjust well. And obviously Texas is different than here, but that is good to hear, because like you were saying before, and so many times, you gotta like the people and you gotta like these people to be able to listen to them, and then,
Right.
in terms of the coaching staff as well as just your teammates. So I mean, it's all good things, and it'll be exciting to see how that, translates when we get to regular season here. So I know, like we mentioned, basketball was with you since you were a baby, so I want to take it off the court, want to put the ball down, set it aside. I know you mentioned potentially going into the medical field back home before you really, looked into UW. If Darcy did not go into basketball,
Right.
was going to pursue some other profession that wasn't pro sports, what are we looking at here? And has that potentially changed from when you were looking at, before you thought about UW? Has that, would it still be looking at potentially medical stuff, or what do you think it would be?
I think it's changed because now, as I've done more of my degree, I don't necessarily want to start from scratch when I go home. I wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. And that's a lot of schooling. So I don't think I would want to start from scratch and go in and do all of that schooling from now. And also, I think I've realized I don't want to work so much on the medical side. I just want to work with the kids. So I love children. I volunteered and worked at a school at home when I was in high school. I did like work experience there and loved it. My mom's a teacher, so loved hearing about all her experiences. So if I didn't play, I would probably be traveling. I love traveling. I love exploring. And I would probably be working with kids somewhere. I do still want to do it related to medicine. I want to be a child life specialist, work in a hospital. I love psychology, and work with young children, but something to do with kids. If basketball is taken off the table, I would love to spend my time working.
So with that being said, is, working with kids a sort of dream career with you? Obviously, either if you weren't doing this, if you weren't playing basketball, or, when things are said and done, is that sort of what's ideal for you?
Yeah, I think so. I want to work in a special needs school or in a hospital, for elementary school age kids, definitely. It brightens every day. You can always learn something from a little kid. So when I'm done with this, that's what I'll be doing.
So with that being said, I kind of think I know the answer to this, but is there anything that you miss the most about Australia? Obviously, I'm sure family, that's got to be the top. And I'm sure that is, but is there anything that, is different over there that we don't have over here? Or is it more so just, not seeing the good amount of family, having them back in Australia?
I think obviously family is like 100% the top one. But I'd say the two top things is one, the beach. I love the beach. I know there's beaches but I like grew up on the beach. We was one of those kids that like came back from school and would just like go to the beach and spend 24/7 there outside. We're always outside. Australia has great weather and there's always something to do outside. So I kind of lived there, and Seattle beaches aren't as easy access for me as they were at home. And also generally I go home for summer in Seattle, so I see a lot of winter, which isn't really beach weather. So I miss the beach and I miss the accent and just everything about the culture that is like nothing in particular, but like going to a petrol station and like just knowing like liters instead of gallons, or like
Yeah.
not having to tip or tax, or just the accent, or like the difference in like politeness, or like how you would say compliment someone or something like that. Just the little nuances that I couldn't name them. I probably couldn't even list them, but I feel like it's a thing. And I've talked about it with a few of the other people, international students and Australians on different teams. It's when you land in the airports at home, it's the accent. There's something calming about like the home. Yeah, I might be nowhere near my house or not even in the same state, but it's just like you don't have to think as much. We walk on the left. You don't have to think about that. We drive on the left. Like there's like you buy things in a certain way, or like the measured, I don't know, the little things.
Yeah.
I
Goes
miss
back
the
to
ease of
the
it. Like it's
subtleties.
yeah, the subtleties of living somewhere that you know. You don't have to think about things. You just get up and you like go about your day without the little things. So I think besides family, that was a long-winded kind of roundabout
But it
answer,
makes
but
sense.
it's just that I miss the accent and I miss like understanding, um, or like, yeah, just the little things. So that's probably the big one.
Do you have a favorite part of Seattle that you've visited yet? Because if for those who don't know, every once in a while, Darcy will post, a place that she's gone to, a place that she visited. And what's really cool to me is that I don't know if you do it at every single place, but you've
Mhm.
got a little painting that you've done of a certain viewpoint. And I think that's so awesome. So do you have a favorite place that you visited so far? Because obviously I'm sure there's more that you want to look at, as
Yeah.
well as what happens to those pieces of art, you create when you visit those places. Do you have like, are you going to make a collage of them? Do you leave them there for somebody to find? So what happens with them, and is there a favorite spot that you visited?
Oh, well, I don't know if I have a favorite yet. I'm really enjoying at the moment. There's a little place. Um, I don't even think it has a name. I couldn't find a name for it. It's just like a little on the way to Gasworks Park. There's a little like outlet where you can like sit, and there's a little wooden bench and you can see the whole landscape of Seattle. There's a little tree and there's like the boats, and then there's the Space Needle, and it's always quiet and there's never anyone there. And it's just a really nice place to go and sit in the shade and read a book. And that's, I think, my favorite place right now. Um, it just because it's such a beautiful view with the sun and the weather at the moment. But overall, I don't think I have a favorite place yet. I Googled a few weeks ago. I felt like I hadn't seen enough of Seattle. And so I Googled like, top things to do in Seattle. And I'm trying to tick every single one of them off my bucket list. I have a little list in my notes that's like 30 things long of all the places I need to go and all the little hidden things that most people wouldn't know about. I went to a pinball museum a few weekends ago. That was awesome. So much fun. Didn't know it was there. It's a tiny little place. It was really cool. But yeah. And to do with the paintings, I love painting. I love art. That's like if I didn't play basketball, I'd love to paint. But so I decided I didn't spend enough time doing it. And because I spent so much time basketball at school, I was like, I need an excuse to paint things. So I bought little canvases off Amazon, and I decided to go and sit wherever I was and give myself an hour and just paint what was in front of me and then leave. So I started doing that, and yeah, I fell in love with it and I love it. And they're actually in a collage kind of on my pin board at the moment. And I think there's like nearly 20 of them now. I did
Oh,
some in
wow.
Utah when I went and saw my sister. And it's really cool just to be able to look up and be like, I went to all these places and I saw all of these things, because I feel like we get so caught up in the day-to-day, like I go in at practice, I do school, I come home, I go to bed, I just do it again. So I'm trying to be, I think COVID and being away from home for so long just taught me, like, you can't just keep wishing for the future. Like, I can't just keep sitting here being like, I really want to go home. I might as well, like, I'm here, I'm in Seattle, it's a beautiful place to be. I might as well see as much as I can. And to be able to look up and see all the little postcards of the places that I've been is like really exciting. And I got to paint them. And yeah, and a bunch of people like them. So yeah, it brings a little bit of joy to everyone's day. So yeah, it's what I do. I really enjoy doing it. I love exploring. My parents are always big. We weren't a very materialistic family. We were always big on adventures and exploring. So that's my little keepsake. I'm trying not to buy things places. I just do a little postcard of them and paint it and then go home, and it's fun and I love it.
That's one of the things, is like seeing where you go next is so cool, and then obviously the resulting painting that comes out of it.
Right.
So that is cool to see, and like you were saying, like we talked about, you can only do so much basketball at a certain point in time, and then it's got to be like, I got to take a step back. So with that all being said, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to most as we, sort of get approach to the season here, or are there multiple things you're looking at? Obviously, I'm sure, like you said, with your list, you've got different places to view. The season's coming up, getting it ready to go into, preseason, like you mentioned. Potentially going to see your sister again. What is Darcy most excited for? I guess in a couple things, because I know picking one is just
right. That's a great
unreasonable.
question. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I've been trying to like
Live in the
I barely know
moment.
what I'm doing this weekend, but I love season. I love playing basketball. I just love the whole experience of game day. I think so many sports fans do, like going to football, like it's the whole day thing.
Yep.
I just love like getting up. We go pregame. We have like we watch film. Like we go to scout. Like all the little things that come with game day. That I think that's what I miss the most in. And I miss the fans. Obviously, last year with COVID, we had no fans. So like running out to the song with the cheerleaders and the band, like we don't have cheerleaders or bands back home. So to have that here, it's like the coolest thing ever. So for obviously basketball wise, I'm really excited for season. I just love playing, and I think we're going to be a really great team. And I love the girls that I'm playing with. So it's just going to be really fun, and I think we're going to do really well. So I'm excited for that. And then, yeah, off the court, I'm just excited to take off, like, see more things. I've like nearly seen everything on my list. So I'm just want to see new things in Seattle and like talk to more people. And I think I love meeting people at all the places I've been. And Australians are really known for like being friendly and outgoing. But yeah, I try and like meet someone new every time I go somewhere. And it's just really cool to hear about someone else's life that you would never have run into if you didn't go to that place or like at that time. So just like going on more adventures is what I'm excited for. There's still a little bit of summer left, so do more, see more. Yeah, just enjoy being across the other side of the world in a foreign country. That's what I'm excited for.
And on the fans part of it, if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're a student, as far as I am aware of, all you need to get into these games for you guys is your student ID. So that is you. I don't want to hear any excuses. I'm going to be there because, I mean, if all I have to do is show my ID, that is perfectly fine. So, I mean, that's exciting. Like you're talking about, getting a new scheme into play, returning some of the girls like you, obviously, as well as adding some of these girls. It just sounds like a recipe for good things, and it's just exciting as much to just get back into the arena in general. So, that is certainly exciting, and we'll be interested to see what other places life takes you in terms of the little adventures that you're talking about. So do you have anything you want to put out there? I usually always put social medias in the description. Is there anything you want to promote? Obviously, like I'm saying, if you're a student, All you need is your ID. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Is there, anything else that you want to put out into the world?
I think just come to games, like enjoy the experience that is like what it is. I think COVID's taught us like we don't know what's coming around the corner. So just go do things. Come to sports games. There's so many cool sports games. Everything's starting up again, full capacity. I feel like just go see Seattle, see the world, and just enjoy. I don't know. That's yeah. Be positive, enjoy life. Why not? That's my motto at the moment. Just yeah,
Live in
make
the
other
moment.
people happy. Exactly. Live in the moment and enjoy what it is for today.
Well, I appreciate having you on. Obviously, what's funny is I saw Darcy at the Mariners game the other night, and I was like, that's her. So that was cool to see. But obviously appreciate having you on as we sort of, I think you said you're almost toward the ends of summer workouts. I'm sure it's starting to get a little bit busier.
Mhm.
So this is my first UW women's basketball interview. So that's really cool. And like I said, excited to have the season. I think if I have the time and I'm not working, I'm just gonna make it out to as many of these sporting events as I can. So excited to get back into things, excited to get back into Husky athletics, and I appreciate sharing your story from coming from halfway across the world to all the little subtleties. That's kind of the theme that I picked up is all the little subtleties.
The little
So
things.
yeah, no, I appreciate you spending your time with me, and I'm I'm after talking to it now, I'm even more excited for the season to come up. So looking forward to seeing you guys out in the court. So I appreciate it and excited to see what you guys do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.